Death has a sound in Frostmoon Keep. It's the way footsteps echo too long in the cathedral, the way breath catches in throats as if afraid to be heard over the silence. Tonight, that hush belongs to my wedding. I walk the length of the stone aisle like a condemned girl crossing the space between sentence and execution. Candles burn low in iron sconces, their flames shivering in the draughts that coil through the vaulted arches. Blue motes of light drift in the air, wisps of old magic or ash from a fire long dead, I can't tell. My cloak trails behind me, white and heavy, embroidered with the silver knotwork of House Daneth. It should be an honor to wear it. Instead, it drags at my shoulders like a shroud. My name is Leora Daneth, last daughter of a fallen line, the only Daneth blood left the council could still use. Wolfless. Hollow. An empty moon in a sky full of hunters. I have heard every word they whisper when they think I cannot hear, and some when they want me to. She has no wolf. No claim. No power. What else is she good for but a sacrifice? Their gazes press in from both sides as I pass, the nobles in their dark furs, the warriors in their formal leathers, the robed counselors standing like carved idols near the dais. None of them look at me as a bride. They look at me the way starving men look at a slaughtered stag, not with affection, but with need. Above them all, towering over the hall, is the throne. And upon it, more spectre than sovereign, sits Alpha King Aldrich Varen. Once, he was a story whispered around heathfires, a war king crowned in battle, his wolf a silver blur on the snowfields, his howl the sound of victory. Now he is a figure etched in shadow and bone. His crimson cloak spills around him like spilled blood, but his frame inside it is too narrow, too thin. The fur collar swallowing his shoulders makes him seem smaller, not larger, as if the garment was made for the man he used to be. His crown lists slightly to one side. No one has dared to straighten it. Even from the far end of the hall, I can see the tremor in his hands where they rest on the carved arms of the throne. Every breath is a shallow, stubborn act. They say his wolf went silent months ago, buried under a wasting sickness no healer nor witch could touch. An alpha without a wolf is like a kingdom without a heart. And tonight, they intend to use mine in its place. The High Council calls it a union, a binding of my ruined house to his fading reign, a symbol to reassure the dominion that all is not yet lost. They say my marriage will stabilize the Frostmoon Pax. That my blood, though wolfless, still carries an ancient lineage. They do not say why they insisted on the blood bond right. They do not say why their eyes gleam like predators whenever they speak of it. I keep walking. The air grows colder the closer I come to the throne, the stones beneath my slippers leaching warmth from my feet. The vaulted ceilings arch overhead like ribs. Outside, snow hisses against the stained glass windows, a distant, restless sound. Somewhere deep in the keep, a wolf howls, long, mournful, unanswered. By the time I reach the dais, my fingers are numb. Aldrich lifts his head, as if it costs him something. Up close, the damage is worse. The hollows beneath his cheekbones are sharp enough to cut. Fine lines fan from the corners of his eyes, carved not by laughter but by pain. There is a weight to him, a gravity, even in his ruin, the sense of a mountain slowly crumbling but still vast enough to crush you. His gaze finds mine. I expect to see the cold calculation of a ruler resigned to a necessary exchange. Instead, I find apology. A flicker of something like regret moves through the gray of his eyes, quick as a breath on winter glass. This is not the fate I would have chosen for you, he murmurs, voice roughened by disuse. For an instant, the hall fades. There is only the dying king and the girl he has been ordered to bind himself to, both of us caught in the same trap spun by older, colder hands. I know, I whisper back. My throat burns. But it is the one we've been given. I take my place at his side, turning to face the hall. On either flank, the counselors stand in their ceremonial gold-trimmed robes, faces solemn, eyes bright. High Counselor Mareth inclines his head, the motion shallow and satisfied, as if he is ticking a box on some invisible ledger. The shaman steps forward from the shadows. He is small and bent, his hair the color of dirty snow, his robes smelling of crushed herbs and old smoke. The staff he carries is older than the keep itself, inlaid with silver symbols that catch the candlelight and scatter it in thin, cold lines across the floor. He speaks, and his voice is a dry scrape against the stone. Tonight, under the gaze of the moon and the blessing of the old powers, we bind Alpha King Aldrich Varen and Leora of House Daneth as mates and monarchs. Through blood and spirit, flesh and soul, until death breaks what fate has forged. The words float up into the arches, into the darkness where the motes of blue light drift like distant stars. They sound like a promise. To me, they feel like a verdict. An acolyte approaches with the ceremonial blade, a slender thing of silver and obsidian, its edge dark with old rites. My stomach tightens when I see it, the world narrowing to the gleam of metal in the shaman's withered hand. Your palm, my lady, he says. I lift my hand, fingers trembling despite my effort to still them. The hall is utterly quiet, even the candles seem to hold their breath. Somewhere inside my chest, in the space where a wolf should have curled and snarled and fought, there is only a yawning cold. I used to think that emptiness was my greatest shame. Only later would I learn that it was exactly why I had been chosen. The knife kisses my skin. And as the first beat of blood wells up, the memories of how I became the hollow girl on this altar surge forward, unbidden. Subscribe now so you're here for every turn this story takes. I was 10 the first time they tried to call a wolf out of me. The whole pack had gathered in the clearing behind Daneth Manor, under a swollen autumn moon. Children lined up in nervous rows, their breath fogging the chill night air, eyes bright with terror and hope. I remember the smell of damp earth and bonfire smoke, the ring of elders standing like a living fence around us. Breathe, my mother had whispered, her hands clamped on my shoulders. When the moon rises over the tree-line, you'll feel your wolf stir. Don't fight it, Leora. Let her come. Her. They all said it that way, as if our wolves were already known, already loved. The first boy shifted with a cry that broke into a howl midway through. Bones twisted, fur burst like shadow from his skin, and suddenly where a child had stood, a gray wolf panted, eyes shining with wild joy. The pack cheered. His mother sobbed into her hands. Another child changed, and another. Some were graceful, some clumsy, some howled, some collapsed shaking. But each of them had something rise inside them, something fierce and bright and undeniable. When my turn came, the elders' hands glowed faintly with ritual sigils as they pressed their palms to my sternum and brow. The moon cleared the trees. Its light poured over us, cold and blue. Call to her, Elder the Ran murmured. She's waiting. I did. I reached into every corner of myself I could find, into fear, into longing, into the small hard knot of stubbornness that always sat in my chest. I called. I begged. I tore myself open looking for her. Nothing answered. No snarl, no flicker of fur at the edges of my vision, no heat in my blood. Only a silence so complete it rang. My heart pounded against a void. Elder Theron's brow furrowed. His palms pressed harder, his chanting growing rough. Power brushed against me like a cold wind, searching. It found emptiness. He drew back slowly, his expression shuddered, and in that tiny movement I felt my world crack. Again, my mother said, frantic. Try again. She's shy, that's all. Your daughter is unsettled, the Ran replied, choosing his words like stones across a river. The wolf may yet wake. But not tonight. Behind him, the other children romped in their new skins, howls ricocheting through the trees. One of them, my cousin Jaren, looked at me with wide golden eyes, then away, as if my lack might be contagious. The whispers started that very night. Wolfless. Broken. Moon-cursed. By the time I reached 16, they had settled on a word that tasted like poison every time I heard it. Hollow. Not just wolf-starved. Not simply delayed. Hollow, as if some essential piece of me had never been there at all. My father drank himself to death trying to outrun the shame. Our lands dwindled, our allies vanished, and House Daneth became a shadow its former self. A once proud banner frayed and forgotten at the edge of the Frostmoon Dominion. Which is, of course, when the council came. High Counselor Mareth arrived at our crumbling manor in a sleek black carriage, his cloak lined with the kind of fur my family hadn't been able to afford in years. He walked through our halls as if he already owned them, fingers gliding over dusty portraits, eyes measuring everything. My condolences for your losses, Lady Daneth, he told my mother. His gaze slid to me, sharp and considering. I hear your daughter is special. My mother stiffened. Leora is wolfless, she answered, each word a small death. We have sought every healer. Wolfless, yes. Mareth smiled faintly. But I've heard odd tales. That when she bleeds, the circles drawn do not behave as they should. That magic slides off her. That spells fail in her presence. My stomach tightened. I remembered the way a charm bracelet had cracked in two when I'd tried it on. The way a seer scrying bowl had gone still black when I'd passed behind her. I break things, I said. If that's what you mean. His eyes lit with quiet satisfaction. On the contrary, Lady Leora, he murmured. I think you may be exactly what our king needs. He pricked my finger with a small silver lancet before my mother could protest, catching the bead of blood on a thin disc etched with runes. The metal shivered in his hand, sigils flaring, then blinked out. Flat. Silent. As lifeless as a coin. Maritha's nostrils flared. Not in disgust. In excitement. Fascinating, he whispered. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment my fate sealed itself. Not with a howl, but with silence. Within a year, summons came from Frostmoon Keep. The High Council had decreed that, to strengthen the Dominion in its time of peril, the remaining daughter of House Daneth would be wed to the Alpha King. Aldrich Varen, the Frostmoon legend. Aldrich Varen, whose wolf had fallen silent. Aldrich Varen, who was dying. My mother argued. Begged. But obligation is a polite word for choke chain. House Daneth owed debts, favor, protection, old alliances long unpaid. This was the price. Think of what your name will be, she said finally, hands cold on my cheeks. Queen. Luna. You will be safe, Leora. Whatever else happens, the walls will hold. Safe. as if stone and ice could protect me from the emptiness already gnawing my ribs. The council sent robes, jewels, a carriage that smelled of polished wood and strange herbs. They did not send a choice. And now my blood drips onto sacred stone. The memories snap like a thread as the shaman tilts my hand over a shallow silver bowl. My blood hits the metal with a soft patter, each drop sending out ripples of faint blue light that die almost instantly, as though the magic has nothing to catch on. Murmurs rustle through the hall. I hear the word hollow again, hissed like a curse and a prayer all at once. The shaman's mouth compresses, but he nods, as if this is precisely what he expected. Her blood accepts the rite, he announces. It doesn't feel like it's accepting anything. It feels as if the bowl is swallowing pieces of me and refusing to give them back. Your Majesty, the shaman says, turning. Aldrich extends his hand. Up close, I see the scars on his knuckles, old battle lines, white against sallow skin. The shaman slices his palm with the same blade. Dark, sluggish blood wells up, thick as spilled ink. It steams faintly in the cold air, carrying a metallic scent tinged with something ancient. When his blood falls into the bowl, the runes along its rim flare bright silver, reacting violently where his darkness meets my pale red. The liquid swirls, fighting itself, then stills. The motes in the air tremble, as if listening. Join hands, the shaman intones. My heart beats once, hard. There is a moment, an impossibly small second, where I could pull away. Where I could run, tear the cloak from my shoulders, scream and break and throw myself at the doors. I do not move. I am House Danitha's last daughter. I am the girl who broke every circle drawn around her. I am the hollow vessel the council has dragged across the dominion to fill a dying king. I lift my bleeding palm. Aldrich's hand meets mine. Our skin touches, wet and slick with mingled blood, and the world shatters. Cold knifes through me, so sharp I can't even gasp. It isn't the chill of the cathedral or the winter storm outside, it's the temperature of the void. Of a place where nothing has ever lived. It sinks into my veins, racing up my arm, burrowing straight into the emptiness in my chest that's been there since the first moonrise that failed me. But something else pours in with it. Heat. Not gentle warmth, not a comforting heathfire, this is a violent, ravenous blaze. It surges out from Aldrich like a dam breaking, like a beast unchained. For a heartbeat, I see it, not with my eyes but somewhere behind them, a great silver wolf, gaunt and wild-eyed, shackles snapping from its limbs as it lunges toward me. Candles explode, wax and flame bursting outward. The great windows rattle in their frames. A ring of blue-gold light erupts around us, whirling like a storm-given shape. It sweeps through the hall, sending nobles sprawling, scattering the motes of floating magic into frantic spirals. The shaman staggers back, staff clattering against the stone. Counselors shield their faces from the sudden gale of power. Somewhere, someone screams. My knees buckle. I feel my blood being tugged, dragged, pulled toward Aldrich with terrible force, as if every vein has become a river flowing in reverse. The emptiness inside me yawns wider, greedier. The void is not passive, it is hungry. The roaring fire of Aldrich's returning wolf slams into it. And the void drinks. Aldrich jerks as if struck. His spine straightens. The shadows fall away from his eyes, replaced by a blaze of molten gold. Color floods his cheeks. The tremor leaves his fingers, they clamp around my hand with crushing strength. I watch, dazed, as the man on the throne transforms from ruin to revenant. He draws a breath, deep, full, incredulous, and when he exhales, the sound that tears from his throat is not a cough. It is a growl. No. A howl, barely restrained, echoing somewhere between this world and the spirit one. He is alive. I am not. My vision blurs at the edges. Cold creeps up my neck, prickling my scalp. My legs are numb. I can't feel where my body ends and the emptiness begins. You see? A distant, slithering voice inside me seems to say. This is what you were made for. Aldrich's eyes, now blazing wolf gold, snap to my face. Leora, he says, and my name in his mouth is a desperate thing. Stop the rite. I try to answer. My lips move, no sound comes. The shaman recovers enough to lift his staff. The bond is taking, he cries, voice exultant. By the old powers, the hollow oath is fulfilled. The words ripple through the hall like a shockwave. The hollow oath. I have never heard them before, yet the phrase lands in my bones with a sick sort of inevitability, as if some buried part of me recognizes it. What did you say? Aldrich snarls. High Counselor Marith steps forward, eyes shining with awe and something far uglier. Your Majesty, the prophecy declared that only a hollow vessel could carry the life spark strong enough to rekindle an alpha's dying wolf. She is the conduit. You are restored. The Dominion is saved. His gaze flicks to me for the barest instant. Not a person. A piece of machinery finally doing what it was built for. My head lolls. The world sways. Aldrich's grip tightens. You are draining her, he roars. Power lashes from him, cracking across the stone. You revived me with her death. The price was always clear, Marith replies smoothly. One life for a kingdom. Her bloodline has been preparing for this since before her birth. Her family agreed. My family, I croak, startled to find I can still speak, was never told this. My voice is thin as cobwebs, but it cuts through the noise. Aldrich's jaw clenches. His wolf flares in his eyes, bright and terrible. Nor was I, he says softly. The softness is far worse than a shout. It is the quiet before an avalanche. The bond between us pulses, once, twice, pain beating in time with his fury. Through it, I feel the vast shape of his resurrected wolf, pacing inside his chest, hackles high. It knows where its restored strength is coming from. It knows who is bleeding out beneath its claws. End it, he orders the shaman. Now. The shaman hesitates, eyes darting to the council. Maritha's face hardens. If you sever the bond, your majesty, the wolf will wither again. The kingdom cannot afford. Then the kingdom can wither with me, Aldrich snaps. I never consented to this butchery. His hand tears free from mine. The moment our palms part, the ring of light collapses inward with a hollow, sucking sound. The sudden absence of his touch is like falling through a trapdoor. My legs give out. The world tilts. Aldrich lunges forward, faster than I would have believed his frail body capable of minutes ago. But he is no longer frail. He catches me before I hit the steps, one arm around my back, the other cradling my head. His heart hammers against my cheek, strong and furious. Stay with me, he commands. I don't, my tongue feels heavy. I don't know how. The bond snarls between us, a frayed, sparking tether. Despite his withdrawal, his wolf is still hooked into the hollow in my chest, claws tangled in the emptiness. I feel it pulling, struggling, unwilling to relinquish the source of its new life. Somewhere in that swirl of pain and cold, another sensation flickers. Warmth. A thread of Aldrich's anger, his horror, flooding through the connection. He isn't just feeling me die, he's sharing it. His face twists. Marith, he says, voice low. You will tell me everything about this prophecy. Every line. Every lie of omission. Or I will tear the truth out of your mind myself. You are restored, Marith insists, but there is a tremor now. The vessel has served her purpose. The oath is fulfilled. I want to tell Aldrich to let it be. That a kingdom is worth more than a hollow girl who never managed to grow a wolf. That I was born for this, if the council is to be believed. But all I can think, as the cold rises higher and the edges of my vision collapse into tunnels of shadow, is that I do not want to die in this hall. Not under their eyes. Not as their triumph. Aldrich gathers me against his chest and stands. Gasps ripple through the crowd as he steps down from the dais, each movement strong and decisive. The power in him is unmistakable now. The king they thought they'd buried in illness strides across the stones with a predator's grace, one arm full of the girl he is not willing to sacrifice. Your Majesty, someone protests. The rite. The rite is over, Aldrich snarls. You will find another way to keep your kingdom from crumbling, or you will watch it burn with me. But you will not stand here and applaud while I bleed my queen dry. The word queen feels strange on my skin. Warm. Wrong. I am not sure I have the strength left to argue. The great doors of the cathedral groan open before us, guards scrambling to obey the king's unspoken command. Snow-laced wind rushes in, stinging my face. The sudden cold is almost a relief, it matches the frost inside me. As we pass beneath the archway, I tilt my head back to look at him. The golden blaze has faded from his eyes, leaving a softer amber, but the wolf is still there, coiled and restless. Why? I whisper. You have what you needed. His jaw tightens. Because I did not ask for it, he says. And because I will not build my second life on the bones of a girl who never had a first one. I try to smile. It doesn't quite make it to my lips. The corridor blurs. My awareness flickers, guttering like a candle in a draft. Behind us, in the cathedral, voices rise, panic, fury, the crackle of hurried spells as the council scrambles to salvage their unraveling plan. Ahead, the hall stretches in a tunnel of gray stone and dim torchlight. Aldrich's strides are long and sure. Each step jostles me, but his arms are solid, unyielding, as if he has decided that by sheer will alone he can keep me from slipping away. I will not let you die for me, he'd said. Now, with my ear pressed to his chest, I hear the vow repeating in every heartbeat. Darkness edges in, thick and insistent. In its depths, something moves, a shadow coiling in the hollow space inside me, newly opened and not yet closed. It is not Aldrich's wolf. It is not mine. It is, waiting. My last clear thought, before it rises up and pulls me under, is that the council was wrong about one thing. I am not empty anymore. I surface too cold. Not the clean bite of winter air, but a deep, marrow-deep chill, as if someone has packed snow into my veins. My body feels heavy and far away. When I try to move my fingers, it's like ordering stones to dance. Leora. His voice pulls me the rest of the way up. I force my eyes open. The ceiling above me is carved wood instead of stone, dark beams etched with old runes. A fire crackles somewhere to my left, its light painting the walls in amber. I'm lying in a wide bed piled with furs, the weight of them doing nothing to touch the cold inside me. Aldrich sits in a chair beside the bed, elbows on his knees, head bowed. The restored strength in him is obvious even in stillness. His shoulders are no longer hunched, his frame fills the black and crimson cloak as if it was made for him again. But his hands are clenched so tightly his knuckles are bloodless. When I stir, his head snaps up. Gold flickers in his eyes, dimmer than in the hall but still there. Relief crashes through him so violently that I feel it before I see it, a sudden, staggering wave that isn't mine. It hits the hollow in my chest like warm water against ice. I flinch. "You feel that too," he says quietly. Not a question. My lips are dry. "What happened?" "You nearly died." His jaw works. "Because of me. Because of what they bound between us without my consent, or yours." Memory punches back, the hall, the light, the tearing emptiness, his wolf howling awake on stolen life. "How long?" My voice is a rasp. "A day. Perhaps a bit more." He scrubs a hand over his face. "You kept slipping. Your pulse would fade, then claw its way back. The healers could do nothing. Their work slid off you as if you were made of glass." I break circles, I murmur. "Always have." "Yes." His gaze fixes on me, bright and intent. "There's a name for what you are, Leora. The council used it when they thought I wasn't listening. They called you the hollow vessel." The words land like a stone in my gut. I've heard hollow my whole life. I thought it was an insult. "It is," he says. "And it isn't." He leans closer, lowering his voice. "There is an older meaning. In certain bloodlines, once in many generations, a child is born without a wolf, but with something else. An absence shaped for power. A void that doesn't repel magic so much as consume and redirect it. Your family line carried this trait once, long ago. The council has been waiting for it to resurface. So they could feed you with me," I whisper. His jaw tightens. My wolf was dying. My body with it. Their lore said only a hollow vessel could carry enough unanchored life to shock an alpha spirit awake. They made you that vessel. They raised you for it. His words are soaked with disgust and a guilt that isn't his to own. It bleeds through the connection between us, the bond tugging like a frayed rope. I feel his fury like heat on my skin, his fear like pressure behind my eyes. I swallow. "And now?" "Now," he says, "my wolf is awake. And he is feeding on you without meaning to. Every breath I take pulls a little more of your life through the bond." The room seems to tilt. "You should have left it. In the hall." He gives a harsh laugh. "And watch you die for a prophecy I never agreed to. No. I will not be their sharpened knife. You said you would find another way." My teeth chatter once, hard. "Is there one?" He hesitates. That, more than anything, frightens me. "There are whispers," he says slowly. "Fragments. The hollow oath is older than this keep. If there is a way to unmake what they have done, it will be buried in the oldest records. In the sealed library." "Sealed," I echo. "By my father. And his father before him." He straightens, decision hardening his features. "But I am king. Those doors will open now. His certainty rolls through the bond like a drumbeat. Determination. Stubborn, reckless hope. I cling to it because the alternative is sliding back into that hungry dark. Can you stand? He asks. I try. My limbs protest, but when he slips an arm behind my shoulders and another under my knees, he doesn't wait for the answer. Heat sears through me where he touches. Not physical temperature, he is as cold as I am, but energy, crackling along the tether between us. He pauses, eyes searching my face. Does it hurt? Yes, I admit. But so does staying still. A shadow of a smile crosses his mouth. Then we move. The path to the sealed library lies beneath the keep, down corridors that grow narrower and older, stone giving way to rough-hewn rock. Torches burn low, their smoke curling against arched ceilings. Aldrich carries most of my weight, his arm a steel band around my waist. By the time we reach the iron-bound door at the end of the tunnel, my vision is speckled with darkness. Every step feels like walking through syrup. The hollowness in my chest yawns wider, tugging on the bond with each breath. Aldrich sets me carefully on a stone bench opposite the door. Rest, he orders. I won't be long. The door looms behind him, carved with the frost moon crest and a ring of archaic symbols. When he presses his palm to the center, those sigils flare faintly. By blood and crown, he says, voice low. Open. Nothing happens. His lips thin. He presses harder, letting his claws slide out just enough to pierce his skin. Dark blood smears across the crest, seeping into the grooves. This time the runes ignite, lines of silver racing along the door like lightning. Metal groans. With a shudder, locks that haven't moved in decades disengage. The door swings inward on a gust of stale, cold air. Impressive, I manage. He glances back at me, eyes sharpening. Stay close. The library is a cavern carved into the mountain's heart, its walls lined with shelves that stretch up into darkness. Books and scrolls lie in organized disarray, dust motes spinning in the disturbed air. The place smells of parchment and old magic, a dry, brittle scent. Aldrich helps me to a central table, then moves down the nearest row with the predatory focus of a hunter. The hollow oath, he mutters, fingers trailing along spines. Prophecies, blood rites, cursed bonds, gods, my ancestors hoarded every horror they could find. There, I say faintly. A narrow, leather-bound volume hums at the edge of my senses, the way a live wire might hum if you stood too close. It's subtle, barely more than a brush of awareness, but it's the only thing in the room I can feel through the numbness. He follows my gaze, plucks it from the shelf, and brings it back. The script inside is old, the ink faded to brown. Aldrich flips carefully until a familiar phrase leaps up at us, coiled in dense verse. When the hollow vessel binds the fading king, he reads aloud, life is restored in exchange for life. The wolf shall drink of the emptiness and rise, and the vessel shall be unmade. My stomach turns. That part worked. Yes, he says grimly. Too well. His finger traces the lines below. The ink smears into nothing halfway down the page, as if someone scrubbed it out. Only fragments remain. Spire moon, blood returned, anchor. He exhales through his teeth. Useless. Maybe not. I swallow. Moonspire. That's a place, isn't it? He looks up sharply. An ancient tree. Older than the keep. Its roots run through every ley line in the northern forest. And blood returned, I say. What if, whatever they took, you could give back? He stares at the page, then at me. Hope flickers in his eyes, fierce and dangerous. A reversal. A counter-right at the moonspire. Or a disaster, I add. We're guessing, Aldrich. He closes the book with a snap. We're dying, Leora. You more quickly than I. Doing nothing is its own disaster. The bond tugs, agreeing. His urgency is a pulse in my veins. Very well, I whisper. Take me to your tree. The forest beyond Frostmoon Keep is a world of snow and shadow. Branches knit together overhead, heavy with frost, forming a cathedral of ice. The moonspire tree rises at its center, vast and gnarled, its trunk as wide as a tower. Pale markings spiral up its bark, runes grown, not carved, glowing faintly when the moonlight touches them. We stand beneath its boughs, breath steaming in the cold. Aldrich has wrapped me in his cloak, but the chill inside me is deeper than any winter. Each step to this place has cost more than I had to give. I lean against the rough bark, panting, hands shaking. If this goes wrong, I say, your wolf falls silent again. I know. He unsheathes a dagger from his belt, its blade dull in the moonlight. But if it goes right, you live. And if it goes, other, I murmur, eyeing the sigils pulsing faintly on the tree. We don't know what that looks like. He steps closer, filling my vision. There is no crown here, no throne, just a man with a wolf burning behind his eyes, desperate and determined. Leora, he says softly. Do you trust me? I should say no. I should remind him we met properly only to be shackled together. That the bond between us was forced, that my life is bleeding out because his has been rekindled. But when I look at him, all I feel through the tether is his terror at losing me, his stubborn refusal to accept a world where my death is an acceptable cost. Yes, I hear myself say. I do. Something in his face eases. Then drink. He draws the blade across his wrist in one clean line. Dark blood wells up, steaming in the frigid air. The scent of it floods my senses, metal and winter and something wild that makes my empty chest ache. He offers his arm. I hesitate only a heartbeat, then press my mouth to the wound. Warmth hits me like a storm. It rushes down my throat, a living fire, scalding and sweet. My senses snap into piercing clarity. I hear the snow settling on distant branches, the heartbeat of a bird miles away, the slow, deep thrum of the moonspire's ancient roots. And underneath it all, I feel him. Aldrich's wolf barrels through me, a silver blaze, snarling at the dark. It tears into the void inside my chest, ripping at the edges, not to destroy it but to fill it. For a breathless moment I am standing in two bodies at once, one human, trembling beneath a tree, one beast, paws digging into frozen earth, head thrown back in a howl that shakes the stars. I wrench my mouth away, gasping. The connection between us has changed. It is no longer a one-way siphon from me to him. Power hums in my limbs, coiled and barely contained. I flex my fingers, purple-black light crackles briefly around them, the air warping in ripples. Aldrich, I whisper. What did we just do? Balanced it, he says, though uncertainty flickers at the edges of his words. His wrist knits itself closed before my eyes, the wound sealing with a faint shimmer. You carry a piece of my wolf now. Enough, perhaps, to keep your life from spilling out. The forest answers with a sound that isn't ours. A twig snaps. Then another. The wind shifts, bringing with it the reek of unwashed fur and old blood. Rogues. Aldrich goes still, every line of his body sharpening. They must have scented the ritual, he mutters. Or felt the surge. Shapes slip between the trees, hulking, wrong. Wolves twisted by exile and madness, eyes glowing a sickly red. There are at least 6, maybe more, circling, hemming us in against the Munspire's roots. One steps forward, larger than the rest, his muzzle scarred. His gaze fixes on Aldrich, then on me, and his lips curl back from his teeth. King, he growls, voice thick and broken around his fangs. You smell like new blood. And fear. Aldrich's answering smile is all wolf. Come closer, he invites. You'll smell something else. He shoves me gently back against the tree. Stay behind me. The rogue alpha lunges. Aldrich moves to meet him, shifting mid-step. One moment he is a man, the next, a massive dark wolf, cloak shredding from his shoulders, teeth flashing. They collide in an explosion of fur and snarls. The clearing erupts into chaos. Wolves streak at us from every side. 2 slam into Aldrich, he rips one from the air, sending it tumbling with a broken yelp. Another veers toward me, hunger blazing in its eyes. Fear spikes through me, and something answers. Without thinking, I throw up my hands. Shadow light explodes from my fingers, curling into talons longer than my forearm. They tear into the rogue as he leaps, passing through flesh as if it were smoke and yet dragging something out with them, a thread of gray despair, a lifetime of regret and hunger. The wolf hits the ground whimpering, body unmarked but eyes gone dull, as though I've clawed out his will to fight. Shock steals my breath. The power burns along my bones, demanding more. Another rogue charges. This time the terror doesn't even have time to bloom, the darkness inside me surges first. I fling my hands wide. A wave of cold rolls out from my chest, sweeping through the clearing in a circular blast. It is not simple frost, it is the memory of every hopeless night I have ever known, every empty moonrise, every whispered hollow wrapped into one crushing tide. The rogues stagger as it hits. They falter, whine, bodies shrinking into their human forms as they collapse to their knees. Some sob. One curls in on himself, clutching his head, eyes staring at something only he can see. The forest goes very, very quiet. My knees buckle. The power that roared out of me recoils, snapping back along the tether to Aldrich. For a heartbeat we are both caught in it, his wolf howling in my lungs, my hollow void gulping down his strength. Then the balance tips. Energy floods out of me in a torrent. Leora. His voice is far away. The world tilts, tree and snow and sky spinning. The scents that had been so sharp fade to nothing. My shadow claws flicker and vanish, leaving only my 2 small hands and skin that feels 2 sizes too big. Aldrich hurls the last conscious rogue aside and shifts back, sprinting to me. The bond between us pulses weakly, like a heart in the last beats before stillness. He catches me as I fall, arms wrapping around me. I feel his panic slam into the tether, raw, unfiltered. Stay with me, he begs. You did it. You shattered them. Just breathe. I took too much, I managed. Speaking feels like hauling words up from the bottom of a frozen lake. From you. From them. From something. His throat works. Then I'll give it back. He gathers me against his chest, rising to his feet. The rogues lie scattered around the clearing, whimpering or unconscious, none in any state to follow. Snow crunches under his boots as he runs. The forest closes around us, branches and shadow and distant stars, blurring into streaks. My head lolls weakly against his shoulder. Through the bond, I feel his wolf pushing, lending me every scrap of strength he has, but it pours through me as if I'm made of cracked glass. Aldrich, I whisper. I don't think this worked the way you hoped. His arms tighten. Then we find another way, he snarls. I am not finished with you, Leora Daneth. Do you hear me? You do not get to leave me now. His words should not matter as much as they do. And yet, somewhere in the spinning dark, they hook into me, stubborn as he is. By the time we reach the keep, I am half conscious, clinging to his voice more than his arms. The corridors blur. Doors slam open before us. He barks orders I barely register. We are back in the council chamber. I realize it only when the air thickens with incense and hypocrisy. Counselors rise from their seats in a flurry of robes, faces cycling through shock, calculation, annoyance. Marith steps forward, eyes raking over us, the blood on Aldrich's cloak, my limp form in his arms, the faint shimmer of power still clinging to my skin. What have you done? He demands. What you refused to do, Aldrich growls. I tried to save her. He strides to the central dais and lays me on a low couch, fingers lingering at my throat until he feels a faint flutter of pulse. Only then does he straighten, turning on the council like a storm rounding on a shoreline. There was more to the hollow oath, he says. Lines missing from the texts. You knew. A murmur ripples through the elders. Maritha's mouth thins. The remaining verses were inconclusive. Dangerous. Best left. Speak to them, Aldrich snaps. Power cracks in his voice, a whip made of thunder. Now. Silence stretches, taut and tremoring. Finally, one of the older counselors, Elder Vessa, her hands knotted with age, pushes herself to her feet. Her eyes, clouded but keen, meet Aldrich's. You were meant to die, she says, voice thin but steady. So was she. That was the mercy of the first reading. But there was another. She closes her eyes, dredging the words from memory. When the hollow vessel binds the fading king, life is restored in exchange for life, she recites. Yet know this, the hollow vessel lives only if the wolf completes its claim. Life returned must be anchored, or both shall perish. The room seems to contract around her words. Aldrich's face goes utterly still. Anchored, he repeats. The bond cannot be severed, Vessa whispers. It can only be completed. Through the full claiming. The true mark. Her gaze flicks to me, lying pale and shivering on the couch. We did not tell you because we knew you would refuse. We hoped the first half of the prophecy would be enough, that the vessel would burn out and the king would endure. And doom us both instead, Aldrich says softly. Because you were too afraid of the whole truth. Rage rolls off him in waves, hot enough that even in my weakened state I feel it wash through the bond, scorching the edges of my fading consciousness. Beneath it thrums something else, darker and more terrifying. Resolve. He turns back to me. My vision has tunneled again, the chamber melting into blurred shapes. Aldrich looms above me, his features carved from shadow and firelight. His hand hovers over my cheek but doesn't quite touch, as if he's afraid his fingers will pass through me. Leora, he murmurs. Can you hear me? Loud, I breathe. Annoying. Relief flashes across his face, gone almost as quickly. They say there is only one path left to save you, he says. To save us both. Prophecies, I manage. Always so helpful. His eyes search mine. Fear and something wilder flicker there. If I do this, there is no going back. Our lives, our souls, everything will be bound. It may kill you. It may kill me. It may kill us both. The cold is closing in again, edges creeping toward the center. I am so tired. Then don't, I whisper. Let it end. His jaw hardens. I cannot. I want to argue. To tell him kings are not meant to throw themselves into the dark after hollow girls. But the bond between us pulses, threading his heartbeat into mine, and what spills through it now is not obligation or royal duty. It is a fierce, stubborn affection. The beginnings of something that could become love, given time we may not have. He leans down, pressing his forehead to mine. Then I will complete it, Aldrich Varen, Alpha King of the Frostmoon Dominion, says softly, voice shaking with fury and fear and something like devotion. Even if it kills me. The darkness surges up to claim me. This time I do not fall alone. Even as the darkness closed over me, I felt Aldrich's presence plunge after it, his wolf hurling itself into the hollow space inside my chest as if the void were a river and he meant to drag me back from its bottom. Then there was nothing at all. I drifted in and out of a place without sound or shape, a weightless cold that might have been sleep or might have been the pause between heartbeats. When awareness finally snagged on something solid, it wasn't my own body. It was his panic. It throbbed against the bond in jagged waves, fear, fury, desperate protectiveness, all beating time with the heavy hammer of his heart. Somewhere far above that, I heard voices, the dry rustle of the council, the sharp commands of healers, the low, dangerous rumble of Aldrich's wolf riding too close to the surface. Fading faster, someone said. The vessel can't hold. She is not a vessel, Aldrich snarled. She is my queen. Light pressed against my eyelids. I tried to open them and managed only a flutter. The world swam into watery focus, the carved beams of his chamber ceiling, the flicker of candles guttering against a wind that hadn't come from any window. I was back in his bed. The same furs, the same hearth. But the air felt wrong, thin, stretched, as if too much of it had been sucked out. Cold seeped from my core, radiating outward. I couldn't feel my hands. My heartbeat stuttered in my ears like a bird throwing itself against glass. Leora. His voice anchored me. Stay with me. I turned my head with the sluggishness of someone moving through syrup. Aldrich knelt beside the bed, braced on one hand, the other hovering above my sternum as if he could physically hold me in place while I slipped away. His face was a map of sleepless hours and barely leashed terror. The golden flare in his eyes had gone feral, pupils blown wide, wolf too close to the skin. Every line of his body was taut, ready to shift or strike or shatter. It's cold, I whispered. I know. His voice broke on the words. Your emptiness is spreading. The healers say your spirit is unraveling. That the void inside you is, he stopped, jaw tightening. Becoming everything, I guessed. He shut his eyes briefly. When he opened them, the decision I'd felt forming in the council chamber was carved there, sharp as a blade. There is one thing left, he said. One way to anchor you. To keep the void from swallowing us both. The mark. My voice was barely sound. The prophecy's other half. His throat bobbed. A true mating bond goes deeper than any council rite. It is not magic layered on top of us. It is interwoven. If I mark you, if my wolf claims you fully, his essence will pour into that hollow place and take root. It may fill it. His hand trembled over my chest. Or it may tear you apart. Or you, I murmured. If my emptiness eats him. A humorless smile ghosted his mouth. Yes. Or me. Silence stretched between us, thick and trembling. Somewhere outside, the bells of Frost Moon Keep tolled the final hour before dawn. The sound bled through the stone like a countdown. Aldrich, I said, fighting to hold his gaze. If you do nothing, I die. And my wolf drags me after, he rasped. The council has made sure of that. We are bound now, you and I, parasitic, incomplete. My life tied to your death. Exhaustion wanted me to close my eyes and float away. But there was one thing left to choose, small and stubborn and mine. You said you wouldn't build your second life on my bones, I whispered. So build it with me instead. He sucked in a breath. It may kill you, he said again, softer now, the words wearing his fear like a second skin. Or save us, I countered. My lips were numb. I choose to live. For a heartbeat he didn't move. Then something inside him broke. Aldrich's shoulders sagged, tension draining away only to be replaced by a different kind of resolve, quieter, heavier, immovable as stone. When he looked at me again, the wolf in his eyes wasn't just raging. It was ready. Forgive me, he murmured. For what comes next? I wanted to tell him there was nothing to forgive. That everything that had brought us here belonged to other hands, older sins. All I managed was a small nod. He climbed onto the bed, the mattress dipping under his weight, and gathered me carefully into his arms. The heat of his body pressed against my icy skin, our hearts a faltering echo against each other. His breath brushed my throat. Leora Daneth, he said, voice low, reverent and rough all at once. By the moon that governs us and the blood we've already spilled, I claim you. Not as a vessel. Not as a sacrifice. As my mate. My equal. My anchor. I felt the words like a touch along the bond, silvery threads winding into the frayed edges. Then he lowered his head and sank his fangs into my neck. Pain was too small a word. Fire lanced from the punctures, rushing in every direction at once. It burned along my veins, through muscle and marrow, searing through the emptiness at my core like a brand pressed to ice. The void inside me shrieked. It had lived my whole life unchallenged, a hollow pit where a wolf should have curled, feeding on every spell that came too close, every careless charm, every scrap of power that brushed my skin. It was used to taking, to consuming, to being the only thing that filled me. Now something poured into it that refused to be swallowed. Aldrich's wolf crashed through the opening his bite had made, a torrent of molten gold and moonlight. It howled as it fell, claws and teeth and fierce, stubborn will, hurling itself into the dark like a star dropped into a well. The world outside us reacted. Wind tore through the chamber, whipping the candles into screaming comets. Shadows twisted, writhing up the walls as if trying to escape. The stone floor shuddered, cracks spiderwebbing out from the bedposts. The furs ignited at the edges, flames licking at the carved bed frame before guttering sideways in the sudden pressure. Somewhere, far away, voices screamed. Doors slammed. The deep, ancient magic woven into the keep's bones woke in alarm, buckling and twisting as two opposing forces warred inside one too small body. Inside me, the battlefield unfurled. On one side, the void, a great whirling maw of nothing, edges ragged and infinite, filled with whispers that had followed me since childhood, broken, barren, hollow. It reached for the incoming light with greedy tendrils, intent on stripping it to shreds, turning bright into empty. On the other, Aldrich's wolf, vast and blazing, fur made of starlight and winter, eyes twin moons burning with rage and protectiveness. Its paws struck ground that wasn't ground as it charged, teeth bared, a snarl ripping from its throat that shook the gnawed air. When they collided, the impact rang through me like a bell struck at the center of my soul. The void surged, trying to devour. The wolf bit back, clamping its jaws around the edge of nothing and refusing to let go. Light seared into dark, burning away shadows in jagged arcs. Darkness swallowed chunks of that light, dimming it, trying to pull it apart. I was caught between them. Every time the wolf lunged, my chest expanded with fierce, wild power. Every time the void pulled, I felt myself thinning, unraveling, pieces of who I was slipping toward oblivion. "Stop," I tried to say. "You'll tear me to pieces." Neither listened. Because they weren't foreign things invading my body. They were me, the absence I'd carried since birth and the presence I'd invited in with my choice, locked in a struggle to decide what kind of vessel I would be. Something else moved at the edges of the fight. Faint, almost forgotten, the small, stubborn spark that had refused to die when I was 10 and every elder proclaimed my wolf lost. The bit of me that had endured the whispers, the shame, the years of being nothing but a useful lack. It stepped forward now. Not as a beast, not as a void, but as a girl standing barefoot on a plain of churning shadow and light, hair whipping in a wind that came from nowhere. My hand shook. My knees did too. But I was there. "Enough," I said. My voice snapped across the battlefield like a whip. The wolf's ears flicked. The void stuttered, its whispers faltering. "You are not enemies," I told them, though my teeth chattered with fear. "You're both part of the same mistake." They hollowed me out to make room for power. "They starved you, Aldrich, so you'd be desperate enough to take it. I am done being carved and used and broken for someone else's plan." The void hissed, trying to pull me in. I took a step toward it instead. "You are mine," I said to the emptiness that had ruled me. "You are not a curse. You are space. Potential. Room for something else." I reached out. The edge of the void brushed my fingers. It was freezing, so cold it burned, but it didn't devour me. It recoiled, confused, like an animal that has only ever been struck suddenly offered a hand. I turned to the wolf. "And you," I whispered, awed, terrified, aching. "You don't belong to me. But you chose to come. So stop trying to eclipse everything. We share this, or we die." Aldrich's wolf lowered its head. Its eyes met mine, molten gold swirling with recognition. "Oh, there you are," and something like respect. It padded closer, slow and careful now, until its breath warmed my face. I reached for it with my other hand. When I took hold of both, void and wolf, light and shadow twisted together. They spun up my arms in spiraling bands, wrapping around my chest, my throat, my skull. Pain flared, yes, but it was different this time, not tearing, but knitting. The emptiness inside me compressed, no longer an endless pit but a contained space. The wolf's essence flooded into that space, filling it, not as a beast trapped in a cage but as a bright echo, a presence that could curl there and watch the world with me. The two forces locked, not in battle now but in balance. Outside, the storm of magic peaked. Flames roared, then imploded. Cracks in the stone sealed with the scream of grinding rock. Candles burst, wax spraying like shrapnel before melting back into their holders. I felt Aldrich's fangs withdraw from my neck. Something warm and thick flowed from the wounds, trickling down my collarbone, but it wasn't just blood. It felt like the last threads of his wolf's essence, settling into place inside me with a soft, decisive click. Then, abruptly, everything went still. No wind. No tremor. Just the sound of two hearts hammering in one shared silence. Mine didn't falter this time. It steadied. Beat. 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 The darkness tried once more to drag me under out of habit. I opened my eyes and refused to go. When I woke, the world had changed. For a moment I didn't know what was different. The chamber looked much as it had, the carved beams, the rebuilt hearth, the familiar bed. Someone had cleared away the wreckage, no cracked stones, no scorched furs. Morning light spilled through the window, cold and clean, dust motes drifting like tiny stars. Aldrich knelt beside the bed again, as if he had never moved. But his posture was wrong for a vigil. His head was bowed, yes, but his shoulders shook with quiet, shuddering breaths. His hand gripped the blankets near my arm like a man clinging to a ledge. "Aldrich," I croaked. His head snapped up. I had thought his eyes bright before. Now they blazed, not with the desperate, ragged burning of a dying fire, but with the steady light of a hearth that's been tended. "Leora," he breathed. Relief crashed through him like a tidal wave, slamming into me through the bond so hard I gasped. But it didn't hurt. It didn't tear. It flowed into the space inside my chest, washing around the echo of his wolf settled there, circling and circling until it became something warm and constant. My emptiness was still there. I could feel it. But it wasn't hollow anymore. It was filled, lined, anchored by that echo, silver fur curled around a core of soft, stubborn light. I lifted a hand. My limbs obeyed without protest. Aldrich caught my fingers in both of his, pressing them to his lips. "You came back," he said, as if he still couldn't quite believe it. "You came back to me. I dragged you with me, if I recall," I whispered. My voice was hoarse, but wry. "You're welcome." He laughed, a sound rough and disbelieving and full of too many sleepless nights. Tears streaked the dirt on his cheekbones, he didn't seem to notice. "How long?" I asked. 2 days. His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. "You didn't move. Your pulse flickered in and out. The healers told me to say goodbye." "What did you tell them?" I asked. "That they clearly didn't read their prophecies properly," he said, mouth hardening. "And that if they tried to cut the bond out of you while you slept, I would remove their hands." Memory tugged. "The council?" His expression darkened. "Very much alive. And about to regret it." I pushed myself up on my elbows. Strength pulsed through my muscles, fragile, yes, but real. A low hum thrummed along my veins, the echo of his wolf stretching inside me, testing new boundaries. "I want to be there," I said. "Leora, you've just been turned into a living battleground and stitched back together with your soul," I finished. Exactly. Which means if anyone in this God's damned keep has earned a seat at that hearing, it's me. He searched my face, weighing my resolve. The bond carried my determination straight to him. No more vessels, no more experiments, no more decisions made over my unconscious body. At last he nodded. Very well, he said softly. Stand beside me, then. Let them see exactly what they tried to throw away. The throne hall looked different when I walked into it under my own power, not in a wedding cloak or as a limp weight in Aldrich's arms. Snowlight poured through the high windows, pooling on the stone like pale water. The motes of blue magic that had once drifted aimlessly now gathered in faint arcs around the dais, as if drawn to the new shape of the bond pulsing between king and queen. The council stood below the steps, stripped of their finery. Their ceremonial robes were gone, replaced by plain gray garments with no sigils or rank marks. Mareth looked smaller without gold at his throat, his sharp face pinched and pale. The rest of the hall was full. Warriors lined the walls, pack members crammed into every space, all of them buzzing with rumors: the dying king restored, the hollow bride still breathing after a storm of magic that had rattled the mountain itself. Aldrich mounted the dais with measured steps. I walked beside him. Whispers rippled through the crowd at the sight of my hand resting lightly on his arm, at the faint shimmer of power that threaded the air around us. Some eyes held fear. Others, awe. A few, especially among the younger wolves, held something like fierce, protective pride. Aldrich turned to face the hall. 3 nights ago, he said, voice ringing clear, the High Council enacted a ritual they claimed would save this dominion. Murmurs stirred. He raised a hand, silence fell. They bound me to a woman they called Hollow, he continued. They fed my dying wolf with her life without her knowledge or consent. They lied to your king. They lied to the vessel they had chosen. They lied to all of you. His words cracked like ice under weight. Beside him, the bond hummed, threading his anger through me. It no longer burned. It felt right, like standing back to back with him while facing the same enemy. In their fear of losing power, Aldrich said, they decided one life, one person, was an acceptable price for their prophecy. They did not care that she had a name. A history. A choice. His gaze swept the council, pinning them where they stood. Leora Daneth is no vessel. She is my mate. My queen. She faced down the darkness inside her and the wolf inside me and chose to live. She fought at my side under the moonspire and broke a rogue pack with a wave of her hand. She returned my life at the cost of her own comfort. The council would have snuffed that out without hesitation. Heat crept into my cheeks, but I held my head high. This dominion deserves leaders who value its people, Aldrich said. All of them. Not just the ones who fit conveniently into old stories. Mareth lifted his chin, still clinging to scraps of arrogance. We did what we must to preserve Frostmoon. Would you have preferred the kingdom fall with you, your majesty? Prophecy demanded sacrifice. Prophecy demanded balance, I said. Every head in the hall turned toward me. The hollow oath spoke of a vessel and a wolf, I continued, my voice stronger than I felt. Of life taken, yes. But also life returned. You chose the parts that suited you and burned the rest. You were willing to doom us both for control of a story you never owned. A flicker of unease crossed Mareth's face. You broke me, I said quietly. You starved him. You tried to turn us into parts of a machine instead of people. That is not leadership. That is cowardice dressed in ritual. Silence deepened. Somewhere in the back, someone growled low in agreement. Aldrich's hand brushed mine, pride, warm and bright, flaring through the bond. As king, he said, turning back to the council, I could execute you for treason. Many would say I should. Fear finally cracked their composure. A few flinched. One dropped to his knees. But death would be too quick a mercy, Aldrich went on, voice cool. You feared power slipping from your grasp? Very well. You will live the rest of your days stripped of it. You will serve the packs you manipulated, tending the sick, strengthening defenses, cleaning the very halls in which you once plotted. You will look in the eyes of the people you were willing to sacrifice and know they stand above you now. Gasps rippled through the hall. The sentence was harsher than any beheading. Your titles are revoked, Aldrich said. Your magic bound. He lifted his hand, the motes of blue light surged, twining into chains of shimmering energy that wrapped around the counselor's wrists. They cried out as the bonds sealed, old power snapping shut like a trap, leeching away the taste of their authority. You will answer not to me, Aldrich finished, but to the healers and captains you once ordered around. You will work. You will serve. You will learn what it is to be necessary without being worshipped. His gaze slid to me, question glinting there. Unless my queen believes this is too lenient, he added. Dozens of eyes swung my way. Once, that attention would have felt like suffocation. Now, with the wolf's echo steady in my chest and the bond warm at my back, it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff I had survived falling from. I think, I said slowly, that it is fitting. You wanted to shape us into tools. Now you will be useful instead of dangerous. Thus about her head, tears of old shame pooling in her wrinkled eyes. Maritha's mouth twisted, but he said nothing. The chain sparked, tightening. So judged, Aldrich said. So carried out. The hall erupted, not in chaos, but in a low, rolling sound like distant thunder. Approval. Relief. A fragile, emerging hope. For the first time since arriving at Frostmoon, I felt the weight of a future settle onto my shoulders and not crush me. It simply fit. 3 months later, winter still gripped the mountains, but the cold felt different. I stood on the balcony of Frostmoon Keep, hands resting on the frost-kissed stone. The valley spread below, a tapestry of snow and dark pine, rivers like threads of glass. Above, the moon hung full and bright, silver light pouring over everything. My breath fogged the air. My skin prickled, not with bone-deep chill, but with awareness. We had spent the months rebuilding, walls, alliances, ourselves. The rogue attack under the Moonspire had been the first of many threats we faced together. Word of the king's recovery and the strange queen at his side rippled through the Dominion, drawing challengers and supplicants alike. Some came to test the new reign. They left understanding that whatever else we were, hollow, cursed, chosen, we were not weak. Footsteps sounded behind me. Aldrich's presence brushed my senses before his hands did, the bond humming in greeting as he stepped up and wrapped his arms around my waist. His cloak fell around us both, red and warm, turning the wind into a distant thing. You're out late, he murmured into my hair. Again. Couldn't sleep, I said. The moon's too loud. He chuckled softly, chest rumbling against my back. Is that how it feels to you? Sometimes. I closed my eyes, listening. The echo of his wolf stirred in my chest, stretching, ears pricked toward the sky. It wasn't a full beast, not the complete other self-shifters bore, but it was more than nothing. A presence. A companion. When the packs held from the training fields, that echo answered inside me, a silent harmony. I'm not like them, I said quietly. Not truly wolf, not truly witch. Still something, in between. His arms tightened. You are Leora. That has always been enough for me. Once, that would have sounded like comfort given out of pity. Now I heard the truth in it, carried across the bond, admiration, desire, a respect he didn't bother to hide. And you? I asked, tipping my head back against his shoulder to look up at him. How does it feel, having part of your wolf lodged in your Luna's chest? He pretended to consider. Inconvenient, he said gravely. Every time you're stubborn, he approves. It's very distracting. I laughed, the sound misting in the cold. Warmth hummed through the tether, his amusement twining with mine until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Below, the keep's courtyards glowed with torchlight as night patrols changed shift. Somewhere, the ex-counselors worked under healer supervision, hauling supplies, copying texts, mending what they had helped break. They wore plain clothes now, hands roughened by honest labor. Sometimes I caught their eyes in passing. Shame lived there, yes. But also the first fragile hints of something better. Our kingdom is different now, I said. Yes, Aldrich agreed. So are we. I rested a hand over my chest, feeling the steady pulse beneath my palm, the echo of his wolf curled there, anchoring me, and beneath that, deeper still, the door of that once hungry void now barred and watched. I thought my emptiness was the worst thing about me, I said softly. The reason I was hated, used, traded. It was the reason you were chosen, he corrected. But not why I chose you. My throat tightened. Why did you? He turned me gently in his arms until I faced him. Because when everyone else accepted that prophecy was a cage, he said, you treated it like a lock to pick. Because you looked at the void inside you and the wolf inside me and decided we deserved more than to be weapons. Because you stepped between them and said enough. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb brushing the scar where his fangs had marked me. It throbbed faintly under his touch, a reminder not of ownership, but of the choice we'd made together. You saved us, he said simply. Snow drifted down, soft and silent, catching in his hair, melting on my lashes. For the first time in my life, the night didn't feel like something pressing in. It felt like something opening. I turned back toward the valley, leaning into him, letting his warmth wrap around me like another cloak. The bond flowed between us, a river of shared breath and intertwined heartbeats, no longer parasitic, no longer a siphon. Just us. A king reborn. A bride no longer hollow. I watched moonlight spill over the frost moon dominion and felt, for once, not like a sacrifice bound to its fate, but like a thread woven into its future. What was meant to be my death, I whispered into the cold, became the beginning of our kingdom's rebirth. If this story caught your attention, subscribe and join us for the next story.